There are horror movies about ghosts inside a house, and then there are horror movies about the haunted house that is inside you. Hokum operates in the later category. On the surface, it's a haunted hotel story, a writer, a remote setting, an ominous suite, a witch, and the familiar sense that something ancient and hostile is waiting behind the wallpaper. But that's just the delivery system. What the film is really doing is staging a descent into guilt, memory, and the symbolic underworld, the place where the self goes when it has spent too long pretending it's fine. Part 1. The film as horror. What makes Hokum work is that it understands atmosphere better than spectacle. It doesn't overwhelm you with jump scares or gore. Instead, it builds dread through confinement, silence, and the sense that every room is a threshold. The hotel is not just a setting, it's a pressure chamber. The locked honeymoon suite is the film's most important image in practical terms and symbolic terms. A locked room in horror is never just a locked room. It's a repository, a sealed container for the thing nobody wants to name. In this case, it feels like the physical embodiment of repressed memory, the place where emotional rot has been stored until it starts leaking into reality. And that's where the movie gets interesting. Because the real question isn't, is the hotel haunted? It's, what is the protagonist already carrying that makes the haunting possible? Part 2. The performance. Adam Scott is the anchor here. He plays the kind of man who has turned cynicism into a personality, which is usually a sign that something underneath is trying very hard not to surface. The performance is effective because it doesn't rely on melodrama. Instead, Scott gives the character a brittle, defensive quality, the vibe of somebody who has already lost control of his inner life and is trying to manage the damage with sarcasm. That matters because Hokum isn't just a ghost story. It's a character study about a man whose demons may be supernatural, psychological, or both. The film keeps those possibilities in play, and that ambiguity gives it a lot of its power. Part 3. The esoteric layer. This is where Hokum becomes more than a standard horror film. On an esoteric level, it reads like an initiation narrative. The protagonist is pushed into a liminal space, the hotel, the woods, the hidden room, and forced into confrontation with forces that are older than his rational mind. This is classic threshold mythology. The hero crosses into the symbolic underworld not to defeat a villain, but to encounter the truth that has been buried. The witch imagery is especially important. She's not just a monster. She functions like an archetype, an ancient feminine force associated with winter, death, memory, and transformation. In folklore terms, she resembles the kind of figure that doesn't merely attack the living, but tests them. She is guardian, judge, and revealer. The film's use of ritual objects and boundary imagery, especially the chalk circle, reinforces that reading. Circles are never casual in occult symbolism. They mark containment, protection, and separation between worlds. A chalk circle says, this is where order ends, and the unknown begins. But of course, in Hokum, order barely holds. Part 4. Symbols and imagery. The film is full of recurring symbolic language. Ash, trees, thresholds, rings, doors, and animal imagery. These details matter because they suggest that the movie is obsessed with cycles rather than straight lines. Ash is what remains after combustion, after the thing has been consumed. Trees imply ancestry, continuity, and deep-rooted memory. Doors and thresholds represent choice, passage, and forbidden knowledge. Rings suggest repetition, vows, and closed systems, the kind of inescapable loop that guilt often creates. Even the title is doing double work. Hokum means showmanship, fake-out, theatrical nonsense. That's funny because the movie uses the word like a trap. It initially looks like something lightweight or genre familiar, then gradually reveals that the fake surface is concealing a very serious confrontation with grief, denial, and spiritual unrest. That's a clever move. The film weaponizes its own title. Part 5. Themes. At its core, Hokum is about what happens when a person refuses to integrate the past. That's the real haunting. Not the hotel, not the witch, not even the rituals. The real haunting is unresolved guilt becoming externalized. In that sense, the supernatural elements are almost secondary. They're the visual language the film uses to express an internal collapse. And that's why the film feels strangely classical beneath its modern horror shell. It's about descent, confrontation, purification, and the possibility, not certainty, of transformation. The protagonist doesn't simply survive the story. He is forced through it, which is very different. So my read on Hokum is this. It's a moody, intelligent horror film that uses folklore and occult imagery to turn psychological damage into a literal nightmare. It's a haunted hotel story, yes, but more accurately, it's a story about what gets locked away, what comes back, and what the soul looks like when it finally runs out of places to hide. Hokum is a bleak, beautifully staged horror film that uses ghost story architecture to explore guilt, inheritance, and the symbolic underworld of the self.